The Ford Fiesta Mark I is the first generation of the Ford Fiesta Super Mini. Originally introduced in 1976, it was Ford Europe's first multinational front-wheel drive car, and was available in both three-door hatchback and panel van body styles. The Fiesta was originally developed under the project name Bobcat and approved for development by Henry Ford II in September 1972. Development targets indicated a production cost $100 less than the current Escort. The car was to have a wheelbase longer than that of the Fiat 127, although shorter than some other rivals, like the Renault 5 and VW Polo, but with an overall length shorter than that of the Escort. The final proposal was developed by Tom Giardo at Ghia. The project was approved for production in December 1973, with Ford's engineering centers in Cologne and Dunton, Essex, collaborating. Ford estimated that 500,000 Fiestas a year would be produced, and built an all-new factory near Valencia, Spain, a transaxle factory near Bordeaux, France, factory extensions for the assembly plants in Dagenham, UK. Final assembly also took place in Valencia. The name Fiesta belonged to General Motors when the car was designed, as they had used the name for the Oldsmobile Fiesta in the 1950s. However, it was freely given for Ford to use on their new Super Mini. Ford's marketing team had preferred the name Bravo, but Henry Ford II vetoed it in favor of the Fiesta name. The motoring press had begun speculating about the existence of the Bobcat project since 1973, but it was not until December 1975 that Ford officially announced it as the Fiesta. A Fiesta was on display at the 24 Hours of Le Mans in June 1976, and the car went on sale in France and Germany in September 1976. To the frustration of UK dealerships, right-hand drive versions only began to appear in the UK in January 1977. The Fiesta followed tradition, with 4-speed manual transmission of the Ford BC series mounted to a new version of the Ford Kent overhead valve engine. Ford's plants in Dagenham, England, and Saarlouis and Cologne, from 1979, in Germany, also manufactured Fiestas. To cut costs and speed up the research and development, the new powertrain package destined for the Fiesta was tested in Fiat 127 development. Unlike several rivals, which used torsion bars in their suspension, the Fiesta used coil springs. The front suspension was a Ford's typical track control arm arrangement, where McPherson struts were combined with lower control arms and longitudinal compression links. The standard rear suspension used a beam axle, trailing links and a panhard rod, whilst an anti-roll bar was included in the sports package. All Mark I Fiestas featured 12-inch wheels as standard, with disc brakes at the front and drum brakes at the rear. Ford paid particular attention to ease of service, and published the times required to replace various common parts. Although not the first Ford vehicle to feature front-wheel drive, the 1960s Taunus produced by Ford of Germany laid claim to that title. The Fiesta is widely credited as being Ford's first globally successful front-wheel drive model. UK sales began in January 1977, where it was available from £1,856 for the basic 950cc engine model. It was only the second hatchback mini-car to have been built in the UK at this stage, being launched a year after the Vauxhall Chevette, but a year before the Chrysler Sunbeam and 4 years before the Austin Metro. The millionth Fiesta was produced in 1979. The car was initially available in Europe with the 957cc and 1117cc engines and in base, popular, L, GL, Gear, and S trim, as well as a Fiesta van. The US Mark I Fiesta was built in Cologne, Germany but to slightly different specifications. US models were base, Decor, Sport, and Gear, the Gear having the highest level of trim. These trim levels changed very little in the Fiesta's 3-year run in the U.S., from 1978 to 1980. All US models featured the more powerful 1596cc engine, which was the older cross-flow version of the Kent, rather than the Valencia, fitted with a catalytic converter and air pump to satisfy strict Californian emission regulations, energy-absorbing bumpers, side marker lamps, round sealed beam headlamps, improved crash dynamics and fuel system integrity, as well as optional air conditioning. Air conditioning was not available in Europe. In the US market, the Ford Escort replaced both the Fiesta and the compact Pinto in 1981. At the beginning of the British government's Motability scheme for disabled motorists in 1978, the Fiesta was one of the key cars to be available on the scheme. A sporting derivative, 1.3 Super Sport, was offered in Europe for the 1980 model year, using the 1.3 Kent cross-flow engine, effectively to test the market for the similar XR2 introduced a year later, which featured a 1.6 version of the same engine. Black plastic trim was added to the exterior and interior. The small square headlights were replaced with larger circular ones, resulting in the front indicators being moved into the bumper to accommodate the change. With a quoted performance of 0 to 60 miles per hour in 9.3 seconds and 105 miles per hour top speed, the XR2 hot hatch became a cult car beloved of boy racers throughout the 1980s. Minor revisions appeared across the range in late 1981, with larger bumpers to meet crash regulations and other small improvements in a bid to maintain showroom appeal ahead of the forthcoming second generation. In 1978, the Fiesta overtook the Vauxhall Chevette as Britain's best-selling Super Mini, but in 1981 it was knocked off the top spot by British Leyland's Austin Metro and was still in second place at the end of 1982. In 1981, coach builders Crayford developed a convertible version of the Fiesta, which was dubbed the Fiesta Fly. Designed by David McMillan, the Fiesta Fly had a permanently welded shut boot, with a plastic sill fitted to prevent the car from needing to be repainted. The production history of the Fiesta Fly is not clear, but the common claim that only 20 or so cars were built is probably untrue. It is believed that this figure refers to the number built by Crayford, rather than the number built in total. What is known is that Dorset-based firm F. English Coachwork Division bought the rights to produce the Fiesta Fly sometime in 1982, and Autocar reported in September 1983 that about 100 Fiesta Fly conversions had been produced. It is believed that F. English built around 200 Fiesta Flies, with 83 known to survive. Crayford also reportedly built 2 Fiesta Flies based on the Mark II Fiesta. It was also possible to purchase any production Fiesta model in Fiesta Fly form, not just the 1300 and XR2 models as often reported.